Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Automotive Therapist. I'm your host, Scott Branford, and thank you for joining in. This podcast is designed to listen to your experiences with auto related subjects from driving to owning and beyond. Stick around, The Automotive Therapist is next. Hi, Scott Branford here for The Automotive Therapist. And today's topic is, before we get started on today's topic, I want to thank everybody for joining in that's listening. And we appreciate your likes and subscribes and keep on following us because we have some great stuff in the future as well. Today's topic is exotic cars for people that can't afford them. And let's face it, there are a lot of people out there right now holding on to their baubles and heirlooms, not only cars, but artwork, jewelry, and things of that nature. But the cars themselves seem to have a real distinct value to uh, a lot of people that have collected these things over time, sentimental value. And these things mean a lot to people because it's exercising freedom. It's, going out and taking a drive in your sports car, going to a cruise night. It's always good stuff. But some key cars come up on the list here, and I was just going to cover a few of them. Uh, First and foremost, the car that came to mind was a Ferrari 360 Spider or Modena. And well, people are out there going to say, well, those cars are still really expensive, but it's a fairly reliable car. In my dealings with them in the past, I had one client who had one with about 100 and some odd thousand miles on it. It was a daily driver he used from Brooklyn to Staten Island every day, except for inclement weather. But that's a great car to own. And value wise, if you look at auctions and sales of these cars, they can be had for a reasonable amount of money these days. Yes, they're still expensive to repair, but as an exotic car for somebody that just doesn't have the money, well, I think you can get away with it. By the way, the Modena is the coupe version of the 360 Ferrari. So many times Ferrari considers coupe version cars as Berlinettas, or if you have a Ferrari that has a removable top, it's a GTS. But they deem the Ferrari 360 hardtop as a Modena, MOD, from Modena, Italy, which is where Ferrari exists. The 360 Spider, of course, is the convertible version. But the interesting thing with the 360 Ferrari, it was really sort of the first real reliable daily driving Ferrari that you could have. Ferraris in the past had issues dating back to the 246 Dinos, to a 308, to a 328, 348, 355. These were evolutions to the original Dino car, the mid-engine V8 cars. So today, that car is considered a reliable exotic car, not super expensive until you have to repair it. Many times I see people with 360 Ferraris that are hands-on and they can do a lot of work themselves. But, you do a belt service on a 360. Of course, you didn't have to take the engine out. That was a big deal with Ferrari at the time. The 355s, of course, you had to take the engines out. It just made it a usable Ferrari. So when you see them online today, people are driving them around, and I can't say they're daily drivers per se, but people are enjoying them because it is a usable Ferrari. And it's a car that, if you don't have a lot of money, you could probably still enjoy. It's not going to drive like your typical SUV that you drive to work every day. The Japanese cars always come up on the list. I have a Toyota Supra, which you can manage to keep it running, with a little amount of money. They're pretty bulletproof, reliable. Other cars like the Nissan 300ZX or even some Mitsubishis, which really aren't that popular, maybe a 3000 GT-VR4. Or an Acura NSX. Those are really reliable cars too. I had a client from Newark, New Jersey, had one with 300,000 miles on it. And he drove it every day. And other than normal maintenance and routine service, it was a car that was, again, bulletproof. Those cars came along at a time when the Japanese wanted to showcase their talents, and they really did a good job. Those cars really aren't super valuable these days, but if you have one, they're all fun to drive. There's really, I don't think I've driven all of them. I drove an NSX once. Interesting story about an NSX. I worked at a dealer, and we had a 92 NSX. I think it's first year 92. And I went back to the used car manager. I said, the power steering, something's wrong with it. And he says, you silly dude, there's no power steering in that car, and I had egg on my face. It was so funny. But those first gen NSXs are golden. And I've seen them with a lot of miles. I met a guy years ago. He had 300,000 miles on one. He was still driving it on original drivetrain. So, and then of course, there's always the ubiquitous air-cooled Porsches. They suffered from body rust and stuff like that because they didn't have the actual, quality product content that you would need to, work against corrosive elements, especially in the Northeast. So I've seen a lot of rotten Porsches, but I mean, those you can't beat a Porsche. Those are really great cars. I have a 928 for sale right now. It's a basket case. And the guy wanted to restore it, and it just isn't worth it. We joke around because if it was an air-cooled Porsche, you would dig one out of the dirt to restore it, and you'd still get $200,000 for it after you restored it. But these are great cars. They go along in history. So when you think about cars to have when you don't have a lot of money and you want to have fun with cars, those are, some distinct examples for sure. I'm trying to think of some other really good cars. I mean, you guys out there, once you start commenting on a podcast here, I'm sure you're going to come up with some really interesting cars that I just missed. But anyhow, you just stay tuned. Feed us comments anytime that you want to. We'll certainly answer as many of them as we can. Like and subscribe like everybody needs to do with their podcast these days. And if you have any ideas that we can use, we'd be glad to use them. And stick around. This podcast is going to get interesting and get better, and it's going to involve you. Thanks a lot for following. I'm Scott Bramford for the Automotive Therapist. We'll see you soon.